BF, 31M, and I, 32F, in a long-distance relationship struggling with intimacy over distance, we had some toxic arguments. I took him not sure how to recover the relationship. Long post, sorry. Preface. It is lengthy and may seem foolish to some, and I apologize. I lack someone to discuss these matters with, but I believe all of this is relevant, even if it might not be. I, 35 years old, female, and my boyfriend, 34 years old, male, have been dating for 1.5 years and have known each other for 2 years. We met online through friends on Discord and live 4 hours apart. I visit him regularly, usually once a month or every other month. The longest we have gone without visiting each other is 2 months. He has experienced significant anxiety regarding infidelity, stemming from his past partners frequently cheating on him, and in a way, that anxiety has somewhat transferred to me, building upon the mild anxiety I already possess. We both have our share of challenges, humorously. I must mention that I came from a very toxic relationship prior to being with him, and I have many detrimental behaviors I have been working to correct during this relationship. I have come a long way from where I used to be, but I still have room for improvement. I tend to please others and experience a degree of anxiety. I dislike it when I perceive that people are upset, and I am quite emotionally sensitive. I become upset easily. I have worked on my anger issues since high school, and most of my feelings of distress come from feeling hurt, and I communicate these feelings to him. I require a considerable amount of reassurance, which I do request. I have explained to him that it would be very helpful if I could come to him with my feelings and that he could offer reassurance and a genuine apology. After that, if he experiences any issues regarding his own feelings as a consequence, we can address those afterward. However, this approach has not been successful. After several months to a year, he has grown weary of how frequently I become upset or how often I ask if he is angry with me or doing okay. I have a highly stressful job as a manager, and I have apologized for taking any of that stress out on him, and I will strive not to do so. However, I feel greatly stressed and prone to overthinking, and when he is very laid back and does not express much love or affection, it intensifies my anxiety. Throughout our relationship, his tolerance for dealing with me has significantly diminished, and instead of attempting to reassure me or show affection, he becomes angry, lashes out, and makes hurtful remarks. He occasionally apologizes the following day, but his words cut deeply, and I usually find myself being the one apologizing for feeling hurt in the first place. Nevertheless, when we are good, we are really good. We have a great time together, play games constantly, and have faced a lot outside of our relationship. This relationship feels markedly different from my previous ones, both long distance and in person. I believe he is the one for me. Despite the challenges, I have never felt so deeply in love with anyone before, nor have I ever been as physically affectionate. Typically in relationships, I struggle with intimacy because I do not have a strong sexual drive. However, it is entirely the opposite in this relationship. I am all over him when we are together, and I frequently desire intimate calls when we are apart. In the beginning, we were wonderful together, intimately connecting frequently and enjoying a healthy sexual dynamic when we met. He is naturally more reserved than I am regarding affection and intimacy. However, during our calls, he usually takes the lead because he simply excels at it more than I do. Within the first 8 or 9 months, we experienced a noticeable decline in our phone intimacy. He rarely initiated intimacy, and when I attempted to initiate, he often did not seem interested. This greatly affected my self-esteem, leaving me feeling unloved and unwanted, which I expressed to him. He shared that he experiences phases in relationships where he may not feel sexual for a month to several months, but that desire eventually returns. I thought, okay, it is just a phase, I can be patient. So I waited, tried not to push too much, and worked on not becoming disheartened when he declined my advances. In person, we are fine. We have sex during my visits, but when we are apart, the intimacy is nearly non-existent. Despite enduring this for months, I have tried to be supportive, albeit at the cost of my self-esteem, which suffers, leading to a greater need for reassurance than feels normal, which frustrates him. I have explained that it is challenging for me to cope with minimal intimacy and affection as a substitute, for example, receiving compliments, being called attractive, or having expressions of love without me needing to initiate. He has stated that he is just not a very affectionate person and that he does his best for me. I have communicated that initiating intimacy after all the rejections has become too difficult, and if he desires to be intimate, he needs to make the first move until my self-esteem is rebuilt. I reassured him that if I am in the mood, I will let him know and he can join in if he wishes. He agreed. However, the most significant blow occurred about a year into our relationship. We have engaged in several toxic arguments where I have broken up with him, due to him being excessively mean or belligerent. I see this as the only way to prompt a reaction, as he refuses to give me space, or I become so hurt that I feel the need to leave. During these instances, if he is not begging for me to return and apologizing, he is saying hurtful things instead. He frequently informs me that he does not like me or cannot stand me. On this occasion, he confessed that he has never fully finished with me unless he was compelled to do so on camera, where he could not leave without me witnessing it. He remarked that he does not enjoy the mess, which I understand, so he lies to me about finishing, fakes it, and then heads to the bathroom immediately afterward before returning. This revelation hurt me deeply, not only because he had deceived me throughout the year, but also because I wondered why he felt I would not collaborate with him or be understanding if he had been honest about it. Why the need to lie? This affected me profoundly, and he became angry when I was sad and upset about it for several days. He explained that this was a significant factor in his reluctance to engage with me intimately, as it became more burdensome to lie to me than to simply avoid intimacy, especially considering that he was already not feeling sexual. Regardless, I expressed my desire to remain supportive of him, and it upset me that he could not be honest so we could navigate this together. I suggested alternatives. I was okay with him finishing in the bathroom afterward, and if he wished to reveal it to me, that would assist me as well. I proposed that he find other things to finish into that he could dispose of, and if he wanted to engage in intimacy separately while I was also doing so, I would be fine with that. I simply wanted to regain intimacy during the distance with my boyfriend. For a few weeks, this worked, and we were somewhat more intimate. Since then, the intimacy has diminished again between visits, and I have resigned myself to the reality of limited intimacy outside of my visits. We have discussed the future, including living together and moving in once he secures a stable job. I am ready, but he is not. I am simply hoping that everything will be okay until that time, as I feel like our biggest issues only arise when we are apart. Many of our issues stem from communication. We have attempted to devise strategies for improving our communication, and although I am not perfect, I feel like I am making a far greater effort than he is. I have watched numerous videos on how to manage my emotions better and express my feelings more effectively. I utilize "I feel" statements in an attempt to avoid making it sound like I am attacking him. I try to grasp what he is saying, but it often seems that he is more focused on explaining why I should not feel upset, or that my interpretation of his words is incorrect rather than genuinely considering my feelings. He has conveyed that our constant arguments have altered his feelings toward me over the duration of our relationship. He indicated that he is less inclined to reassure or offer affection when we argue frequently, and during weeks or 2-week spans when we do not argue, he feels more affectionate. However, the next argument resets everything to square one. This is frustrating because during arguments, he tends to be significantly meaner and angrier than I am, deliberately saying hurtful things, while I may feel sad and angry for a few days but do not love him any less. I still wish to be affectionate and loving. I continue to compliment him and strive to make him feel good, even if he insists he does not need that. Yet I do it anyway. I feel as though I cannot win. I am working on self-improvement, aiming not to be hurt as easily by things, and I am genuinely making progress, even though it is a gradual journey. I remind him that improvement does not happen overnight, that it requires both of us, and that if I communicate more effectively, he needs to respond positively so we can be on the same page. Occasionally, he does respond well, and our arguments are resolved quickly, but most of the time, he is preoccupied with what he assumes I am upset about rather than addressing what I am actually saying because "you always get upset about this," or "I'm used to you being petty because that's how you have always been." I understand, but I am actively trying. 2 days ago, we had a significant argument that involved bouts of pettiness throughout the night, culminating in him being cruel and refusing to apologize, insisting that I needed to apologize first. I left the call, communicated that I could not continue in this manner, and that his behavior was unkind, and that I could not remain in a relationship with someone who treated me like that. I blocked him, and he sent me mean messages on Snapchat, claiming he had not joined the call at night to sleep with me in approximately 3 months, unless he was compelled to do so or unless he fell asleep before me, which occurs once every couple of weeks. He leaves his computer on the call, mutes me, and then heads to bed to watch videos on his phone. I questioned this behavior, and he claimed he was unable to hear his videos when he was in the call, did not want to hear my breathing over his content, and did not want me to hear him masturbating. I told him I believed he was lying, and he asserted that he had masturbated 20 times since I last visited him. He claimed he last did so while I was at work that morning, even though I had attempted to initiate intimacy the night before, and he refused. I lost control. I was trembling and crying, asking him why he would do that. He told me he did not like me, that he had wanted to break up 6 months ago, but did not want to upset me. I responded that if he did not care about me, why did it matter? And he insisted he did care, but was exhausted by all the arguing and fighting. He mentioned that he enjoyed having me around as a companion because I was always present for online gaming and watching shows together. He stated it was pleasant to have someone nearby, but he believed he would be happier as a single person without the demands of a relationship. This revelation deeply unsettled me. I know I am a challenging person to date. I was upfront about this when we first met, and I was hesitant about our relationship because of it. But I have been incredibly supportive of him throughout our time together. If he desires something, I make an effort to provide it. He suffered from significant eating anxiety that I assisted him with. He was incredibly underweight, and now he has gained weight and is much less anxious about eating. He has expressed immense gratitude for my support with that. He has been hospitalized for gallbladder issues, and I took a week off work to be with him because I was concerned and did not want him to be alone. He cried and expressed appreciation for my care. When he believed his dog was dying, I took time off work to help him through that ordeal. His family could not afford the cremation, so I covered the cost and told them it was the least I could do. I would do anything for this man. I am doing my utmost while also grappling with the deaths of family members over the past 6 months, which has significantly affected my mother. I cover all expenses since he is between jobs, paying for every one of our visits. He has only visited me once due to his heightened anxiety, so I have traveled to him every time besides that single instance. My job is incredibly stressful, and I am striving in every aspect, but this relationship seems to be where I struggle the most. Despite that, I am still attempting to improve for him so that we can be happy together, and so he may be more inclined to provide the love and affection I desire. I simply want to feel loved. The most painful aspect is that he has been masturbating without me and lying about it. I feel foolish for trying so hard to be understanding and supportive when he claimed it was just a phase he experiences, and for continuing to support him after discovering he had lied about finishing when we were together, only to learn now that he has been engaging in activities without me for the past month. He makes me feel odd when I express my intentions to be intimate because I do not make him feel desired or try. I just announce that I plan to do something. He finds that strange. I reiterated that we had agreed upon this during those difficult months, as the repeated rejections had become overwhelming for me. He claimed he does not recall our previous conversations. I conveyed that it is profoundly unjust for me to wait each month for him to initiate intimacy, and if that does not happen, I endure extended periods of waiting until our visits, even though he is aware that I would respond to him even with the slightest prompts. I feel incredibly betrayed, and I told him that I do not wish to be with someone who does not care for me and prefers to remain single, or who would deceive me regarding our struggles with intimacy over the past year. My self-esteem is lower than I ever imagined it could be. I feel worthless, pitiful, and utterly foolish. I feel unwanted and unloved, despite having given this man my entire heart. I would give him the world if it were within my power, but I find myself hindered by my own anxiety and emotional issues, which contribute to these pointless arguments. I do not know how, or if I can overcome these feelings, or if we can recover from this situation. When I attempted to leave once more, He acknowledged that some of the things he said were inappropriate and that he was exaggerating since I had broken up with him first in an effort to inflict more hurt due to his own feelings of pain. He clarified that he did not like my behavior and did not appreciate how I act, but he does like me and loves me and wishes to make things work. He apologized for the masturbation, stating it was not as frequent as he had indicated, but he did admit to doing it during the previous month. He expressed feeling overwhelmed by the arguing in our relationship, which caused him not to care and to resort to that behavior. Regarding the lack of calls with me, which he insists I must attend, he never permits me to mute myself and becomes upset if I do. He claimed that when I sleep, I make noises that sound sexual, which makes him anxious. When he hears those sounds, it distracts him and makes him question whether someone else is present with me and I'm being unfaithful. He has dealt with this issue with an ex in the past. Consequently, he spirals into anxiety and cannot sleep, often remaining awake until I start snoring. So, he stated he mutes me most nights because it is less complicated than confronting the anxiety, but some nights he becomes aroused and goes to masturbate. He would wake me up to this in the early stages of our relationship, but I suppose that I am not worthy of that anymore. He further noted that he does not mute me as often as he claimed, but it does happen. Since this incident, I have felt remarkably depressed. We argued and discussed these issues throughout the night, and I was so anxious that it kept waking me up. I went to work after virtually no sleep for 24 hours and then had to complete another 8-hour shift. During my lunch break, we spoke, and he appeared normal, even happy at times. He seemed a bit hesitant, asking if I wanted to discuss anything, but I did not. I feel hollow inside right now. All I feel are hurt, betrayal, and anxiety. I am unsure of what is real anymore. I was heartbroken when he first lied about finishing, but this situation is vastly worse. I have felt unwanted over this past year, only to discover that he is capable of wanting intimacy, but that doing so with me is too much of an inconvenience. I question the authenticity of his claims about phases of not being in the mood. I feel as though everything is my fault and that I am worthless. I believe I am merely enjoyable to have around for gaming and watching shows, but that I am not cherished unless I am physically present. He also mentioned that he made a Reddit post about me, where everyone advised him to leave me, claiming I sounded insufferable to be with and expressing disbelief that he had remained with me for so long. He said he did not want to heed their advice, so he deleted the post and opted to stay with me. I recognize that I am not perfect, but neither is he. I continue to love him more than anything and persist in my efforts. Despite his anxieties regarding my potential infidelity and departure, I consistently reassured him he is the only one I would ever be interested in, and that no one else could ever compare to him. I could not possibly be tempted by anyone else, and while perhaps that is a product of anxiety speaking, I cannot be certain that he would reciprocate those feelings. In summary, my boyfriend and I have been together for a year and a half. We argue frequently because I am sensitive and experience many emotions, which leads to decreased affection and love, impacting my self-esteem. In person, our relationship is stable, with a satisfactory physical connection. However, during periods of distance, intimacy is minimal. He has mentioned experiencing phases where he lacks sexual interest. I have attempted to be supportive, coming to terms with minimal intimacy between our visits, only to discover a year into our relationship that he has been lying about finishing and that he goes to the bathroom afterward. Despite my hurt, I have tried to support him and find alternatives. After a recent argument, I broke up with him, and he made several hurtful comments, claiming he has avoided joining the calls to sleep with me for the past 3 months to engage in personal activities instead. After a year of struggling with intimacy, I learned he has been engaging in those activities behind my back and lying about it because it is too inconvenient to do so with me, and that I am never around when he wants to be intimate. Although he backtracked after I attempted to leave again and stated he does not engage in either behavior as frequently as he suggested, he insists that he loves me and wants to work through our challenges. I feel betrayed and heartbroken and am uncertain about my feelings or the way forward. Story 2. Friends don't steal notes. I faked my classmate's study materials to teach her a lesson on responsibility. Graduation day arrived, and her grades showed it how far would you go to prove a point. I first shared this on Nuclear Revenge, but I think it is not as drastic, so I felt it was more appropriate to post it here. This occurred in 2018 when I graduated from high school. To provide a brief overview of the Swiss education system, typically, students attend school until the 9th grade. If one intends to go to university later, they transition to grammar school from the 8th to the 12th grade. I chose to pursue my studies and attended high school. Additionally, in Switzerland, at least in my state, Canton, any score below 75 is considered a failure. The grading system is quite strict. There, I quickly became friends with Chelsea, who is now my girlfriend, and Alicia. Alicia is the type of person who can be funny in small doses. She often portrays herself as the victim and mainly talks about her own experiences. However, spending too much time with her can be exhausting. She also tends to avoid accountability for the issues in her life, claiming it is due to her upbringing in the foster care system. This incident occurred about 2 months before our final exams. Graduating obviously requires passing the finals. However, passing them is not the only requirement. The finals account for half of the overall grade, while the other half comes from the final report card. For instance, if I received an A in my final English exam but had a C on my last report card, my overall grade would be a B, and so on. Alicia struggled significantly because her last report card was not very strong. She needed to excel in most subjects to graduate. You might think she would take extensive notes and start studying early, right? Wrong. She procrastinated until 2 months before our finals, while Chelsea and I diligently studied. I have always been the girl who offered my notes in our class group chat in case anyone was interested. This detail becomes important later. We had a fairly lengthy list of math topics we needed to master, and I created notes for each topic, storing them in a folder in my locker. I only shared some of them in the group chat when someone specifically inquired about a topic. One day, I went to my locker and found they were missing. I panicked. I had spent weeks writing them and spent an entire week searching for them, experiencing approximately 3 panic attacks because I feared I would fail and have to repeat everything. That is when Alicia casually informed me that she had taken my notes the other day when I asked her to retrieve a book from my locker. She had no intention of ever telling me, stating, "It's not like you would need them anyway. You had them long enough. If you didn't make copies, that's not my fault." Her blatant entitlement sparked my desire to devise a plan, a devious plan. Not only had she stolen my notes, if I had not bugged her so much, she would not have even told me she had taken them. She was merely a high school friend, and I knew I would never engage with her again once we graduated, so frankly, I did not care about the consequences for her. Her outrageous self-centeredness finally pushed me to my limit. I pretended to apologize for causing drama. "It's okay. You just have those moments sometimes." I was on the verge of exploding and continued with my school day. Alicia persistently contacted me about notes, especially my notes on various books. Since she chose the same books, she did not want to study separately. I began to provide her with incorrect analyses and fabricated notes. They were obvious enough that it would seem she could figure out they were wrong if she thought critically, but not so obvious as to be glaringly incorrect. If she had read the texts, she would have realized my notes were nonsense. I employed the same strategy for our English books and French. She already had my math notes, so I could not fake those, but I managed to deceive her in German, French, English, chemistry, physics, and psychology. After investing so much time in crafting these fictitious notes, I witnessed the outcome the day before graduation. We went to a pub with our teacher to watch a football game I do not even remember, where she presented our results. I graduated with a score of 5.38 in Switzerland. Grades range from 1 to 6, with 6 being the best, roughly equivalent to an A. Alicia appeared pale. She received a 3.21D. She had failed all her classes except for math and psychology. Oops, it seems she had relied heavily on my notes. She had not read the required books or our textbooks. I had to suppress a smile. To this day, my girlfriend believes what I did was cruel, but honestly, it was a necessary response to her entitlement and narcissism. From what I have heard, she is currently attempting to repeat the year and try again, hopefully without resorting to stealing her friend's notes. Edit. Thank you to everyone who clarified the difference between a cup and a mug. Edit 2. Many people are asking me about this, and no, I do not regret my actions. To pass her finals, she needed to study and read her French, German, and English books. The objective was not merely to read the notes and skim her way through. The language finals, at least for the books, were conducted orally. Had she actually read the texts, she would have recognized that my notes were incorrect. So, honestly, it was her fault.